hair with its follicle, magnified approximately 150 times. Hair shaft. B. Hair root. G. Hair bud. D. Hair follicle. E. Hair germ. F. Stratum keratin and G. Mucous layer of the epidermis. Dermis. 1. Openings of sebaceous glands. K. Cellular germinal substance of the hair. L. Medulla, surrounded by the cortex, which is covered externally by the epidermis. The hair. In both healthy and sick states. Why is it that so many people have a bad hair? And why, despite eau de laube and burdock root oil, do so many young plateaus and wig pickers still strut around the world? And doesn't the packed stalls of a theater, seen from a bird's eye view, resemble a snowy landscape in the moonlight because of all the gray and bald heads? It's simply because skin and hair care is still sorely lacking, and many people's hair ages and dies prematurely, turns gray and falls out. That's why, and because people don't care about their hair at all, the many charlatans with supposedly hair growth promoting products and treatments can so easily make a killing. Too late. As with many other ailments, most people usually only feel the obligation to care for this adornment when their hair starts thinning. I say adornment, even though nowadays, for men, having a head full of non-graying hair will soon be considered old-fashioned. Those who share this view need not read the present essay, but those who value their hair should read and follow. All over the body, with the exception of a few areas, such as the lips, palms, soles of the feet, and the 2 front joints of the fingers and toes, hair grows from the skin, usually at an angle, but in different places and in different people, ages, sexes, and races, in varying amounts, colors, lengths, and thicknesses. It is found either long and soft like the hair on the head, or short, thick, and stiff like the eyelashes, eyelid, nose, and ear hairs, or short and extremely fine like the almost colorless woolly hairs on the other, seemingly hairless parts of the body. The lack of beards or the scarcity of beards in most Mongolian and American peoples is remarkable, as is the extensive hair growth all over the body among the Maldivian tribes, among whom the Ainos, the inhabitants of the Kuril Islands, are the hairiest people on earth, the extraordinary curliness of the head hair among black peoples, and the extraordinary length of this hair among the Kafuso and Papuans. Among the Caucasian peoples, thick hair growth is particularly common among Jews and Southern Europeans, while sparse hair growth is more typical of Northern Europeans. Excessive hair growth, as well as baldness, sometimes occurs as a congenital defect, manifesting either over the entire body or only in specific areas. Regarding the number of hairs in a given area, there is considerable variation in hair color. For example, on an area of 1/4 square inch, 147 black, 162 brown, and 182 blonde hairs were found. In a moderately hairy man, 293 hairs were found on the crown of his head, 39 on his chin, 23 on his forearm, and 13 on his thigh, all within an area of 1/4 square inch. The arrangement of the hair in curved lines is interesting, as it converges at different points or lines, or diverges from them in 2 or more directions, forming a multitude of figures, streams, whirls, crosses. The hairs are solid, round or somewhat flattened, avascular and nerveless, fairly firm threads made of keratin, formed from a protein-like substance, and fat with some iron and manganese oxide, which resist decay for millennia, for the mummy hairs remain completely unchanged and possess very high elasticity. When dry and warm, they become electrically charged by friction in both the dead and living state, spread out, and even in humans, spark with a crackling sound. They are also very hygroscopic, water-attracting, sometimes dry and brittle, sometimes moist and soft, depending on how much or how little moisture they have absorbed from the skin and the atmosphere. Depending on the amount of moisture they contain, they become more or less long, which is the basis for their use in hygrometers, humidity gauges. Its color, which seems to be primarily bound to the oil in the hair, ranges from white through all shades of yellowish white, reddish yellow, and brownish yellow to red, deep brown, and black. As a rule, there is a correspondence between the color of the hair and that of the eyes and the complexion of the skin. In old age, but also in middle age, the hair turns white, and usually the dark hair turns white earlier than the blonde. White hair is much rarer among black people than among Europeans, while among the Mandanan, a North American tribe, a large number of individuals have silver gray or completely white hair from a young age. in white-haired cockroaches, albinos, dondos, blaffords, white Negroes, which occur among all human races and were formerly considered a separate human race, although they are merely congenitally ill, suffering from whiteness, leucopathy, or albinism. The pigment is lacking not only in their hair but also in their skin and eyes. This latter circumstance means that these cockroaches usually cannot tolerate daylight and can only see well in the dark. Each hair consists of two parts. A part protruding from the skin, the hair shaft, which gradually tapers to an increasingly thin end, the tip. In straight hair, this is straight and rounded. In curly hair, it is wavy and somewhat flattened. In kinky and woolly hair, it is spirally twisted and completely flat or slightly clumped. The other part, embedded in the skin, is round and straight. The hair root. This root becomes progressively softer towards the base and terminates in a button-shaped, hollowed-out swelling, the hair bulb. The entire hair root is tightly enclosed by a 1 to 3 inch long sac, which forms from a bottle-shaped invagination of the dermis, and the epidermis consists of what is called the hair follicle or hair sac. On the closed base of this sac, into which one or more sebaceous glands usually open, see Gartenlaube, 1854 number 44, rises a wart or hillock-shaped protrusion, the hair germ or hair papilla, which is very richly vascularized and is the actual growth-sustaining formative component of the hair. The hair bulb, with its cup-shaped cavity, sits atop this papilla. From the blood of the finely meshed network of hair tubes in the hair germ, the hair substance is first secreted as a liquid, in which vesicles, cells, then form. These are gradually transformed upwards, partly into platelets and fibers, and thus finally form the cortex and medulla, as well as the epidermis of the hair. The cortex, or fibrous substance, forms the outer, most significant and colored part of the hair. It is longitudinally striated and composed of rigid, flat, straight, pointed fibers, hair fibers, made up of spindle-shaped hair plates. This substance, which is tightly covered externally by the thin, transparent cuticle of the hair, composed of entirely flat, angular, overlapping plates, and thus acquires a ring-shaped transverse striation, always displays dark spots, dots, and streaks. These originate partly from clusters of pigment granules within the hair plates, and partly from tiny air-filled oval cavities, vacuoles, and spindle-shaped nuclei. At the lower part of the hair root, the horny hair plates become increasingly softer and finally transition into elongated and rounded cells that form in the liquid hair substance secreted by the blood of the hair follicle. The tip of the hair consists only of cortex with its cuticle. The air spaces of the cortex are only found in the shaft or the upper part of the root. The medulla, which occupies the middle of the hair and is often completely absent in places, consists of rows of rounded nucleated cells, medullary cells, filled with fluid or air bubbles, and partly with granules of fat and pigment. Near the bulb, these cells are devoid of air, which may only be introduced later as a result of the partial evaporation of the liquid contents of these cells. Sometime after birth, most, and in some cases all, of the woolly hairs fall out and are replaced by new ones. This total hair replacement occurs because, as with milk and permanent teeth, new hairs develop within the hair follicles of the woolly hairs themselves, gradually displacing the old ones. Thus, at this time, two hairs are present in one follicle, the later growing one lifting the earlier one from its nourishing base and pushing it out of the follicle. Once formed, the hairs continue to grow for a shorter or longer period, specifically, from the hair follicle through the development of new cells from the nutrient fluid separated from the blood. Of these, the middle cells later transform into medullary cells, the outer ones into cortical plates and fibers, and the outermost ones into epidermal scales, reaching a length determined by location and sex, and then ceasing to grow. If they are cut, however, they regrow and continue to grow as long as they are not allowed to reach their predetermined length. Hair, like all keratinous structures, has a limited growth rate. Thus, in a man who is 60 years old and whose hair, without being cut, can grow to approximately 2.5 centimeters, hair can grow to a length of 21 feet by cutting it, if one adds up the portions cut off. The fully formed hair, although lacking vessels, is not a lifeless body. It is permeated with fluid and uses it for its nourishment. These fluids originate from the vessels of the hair papilla and the hair follicle, probably rising primarily from the root, without any special channels for them, through the cortex and reaching all parts of the hair. Once these fluids have served to nourish the hair, they most likely evaporate from its outer surface and are replaced by new ones. The oiling of the hair by sebum probably prevents excessive evaporation of the hair sap. Perhaps the hair also absorbs fluids from the outside in vapor form. The formation of air in the medulla and cortex is likely the result of an imbalance between the supply of fluid from the hair follicle and the amount that evaporates. It is, in effect, a drying out of the hair. Hair loss is certainly also, in many cases, due to nothing other than a lack of the necessary nourishing moisture. Similarly, the whitening of hair, which depends primarily on the discoloration of the cortex, less so on the almost colorless medulla, is certainly often caused by such dehydration, which is why white hairs, when cut or pulled out, grow back without color. There are also cases of hair rapidly graying, as well as cases of hair that has turned gray rapidly regaining its color. Since the follicles of lost hairs persist for a long time, the regrowth of hair in bald patches is not impossible even after a considerable period. There are cases where hairs of a different color than those lost have grown back. From all this, it is clear that the hair papilla at the base of the hair follicle is of paramount importance for the life and well-being of the hair, and that it is only from this point that one can influence the hair. Therefore, hair is also far more influenced by general health than is commonly believed. In good health, hair is strong and firmly anchored in the skin. In weakened health, it falls out easily. More on hair diseases and care later.